New Orleans Saints quarterback Jameis Winston makes his long-awaited return to team drills, and though he looked a little bit rusty, the real benefit here is that he is back at all. We got all that and a little bit of Lan Yatch for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints, your team every day.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter. You can find me over at, of course, sorry, I am your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today Saints Wire, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, except for this month, and every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. I appreciate y'all very much for being here for another live episode of Locked On Saints. I'm already seeing y'all in the chat. Don't forget to drop that your team every day. Thomas Irwin, I see you with the compliment there as well. Thanks so much for your tireless work at this. And I will tell you this all right now before we start today's episode. I am never tired. This has been awesome. This has been such a blast to be a part of with everybody. So I appreciate you being here with us for another episode. We are live here on YouTube. Get your questions in so I can answer them in the later episode. We're back to two-a-days tomorrow, Tuesday, Tuesday and Wednesday. But the big topic in today's episode, Jameis Winston, the biggest story right now, making his return back to 11 on 11 drills. Now, the Saints ran a couple of sort of standard team drills as well as some red zone team drills, and then they ran their 2-minute drive simulations where Jameis Winston wasn't a part. He was not a part of the 2-minute drive simulations, but he was there for red zone team drills as well as standard team drills, and that's good news. Remember, we were talking about how last night after the dome practice, Dennis Allen saying that they believe that they'll have Jameis Winston back out on the field soon for team drills, and how generally when Dennis Allen says soon over the course of this offseason, he usually means tomorrow, and that's exactly what we got yet again. Same thing happened with Michael Thomas the day before training camp opened, saying that he'll probably be out there soon, that they expect him to be out there soon, and he was out there the very next day. Tyrann Mathieu, the same deal. Oh yeah, we hope that we'll get him involved in some team drills here soon, and then the next day he was involved in those team drills, and then same thing today and yesterday with Jameis Winston, with the hope that they would get him participating in those team drills, and there he was participating in them. Now, he was only 1 out of 3 in terms of the 3 passes that he threw, one of them being an interception, and it was a rusty day for Jameis Winston. He did have some nice moments in 7-on-7s as well, but that interception, I've had some people write to me and say, hey, should we be concerned about Jameis Winston's interception today? Is it did it look like it was, a bad throw, or was it like a good play by the defensive back? And I'll tell you, it was a very good play by the defensive back, but even if it wasn't, that was Jameis Winston's first interception that he has thrown all training camp in team drills. He almost went the entirety of training camp without throwing an interception in team drills, and that's really impressive because you've got quarterbacks that are all around the league throwing 3 or 4 of them things in a single training camp practice. So even if it was a bad throw by Jameis Winston, he's been away for a week and a half. He comes in and he throws an interception his first time back in team drills. It's nothing to hit the panic button over, especially when it's his only one of team drills over the course of the entirety of camp so far. So no, I don't think you have to be concerned about that, but I will tell you that it was a great play by CJ Gardner-Johnson and will be our play of the day, which we'll break down here in just a second. But the big thing that I want to highlight here is that one of the other kind of storylines that came from all of this was Dennis Allen, who was asked if Jameis Winston doesn't take his first snap in game action until week 1 in Atlanta, are you comfortable with this? And Dennis Allen basically said, yeah, they are. I mean, they're going to see how things work out over the course of this week. The Saints practice today. They'll practice again on Tuesday and Wednesday. They have a walkthrough on Thursday, and then the game against the Chargers is Friday night. There is a chance, yes, that Jameis Winston sees some snaps or maybe just a series, which would make the most sense, against the Chargers on Friday night. But also, He might not, right? Like, is this a situation where you just kind of say, you know what, he's the most important player at the most important position on the field, so wrap him up in bubble wrap, and Jameis, see you on September 11th in Atlanta, right? Or see you at practice, but then we'll see you in game action September 11th in Atlanta. I don't think either one of the approaches is wrong or incorrect. I think you have a greater risk, of course, if you have Jameis go out there during the preseason game, but that's just going to happen. And sometimes that risk is, a short-term risk, like what happened with Zach Wilson and the New York Jets earlier this offseason, or sometimes it ends up being a long-term risk, which we've seen all around the NFL year in and year out, which is one of the reasons why shortening the preseason wasn't something that was really fully met with much of a defense at all when it came to the players who are the ones themselves getting injured during the preseason and not being able to play out their regular season check. So I get it from both sides. So I don't think that either one of them is good. Either one of them is bad or the other one is more good than the other, right? I mean, if you see Jameis Winston out there on Friday, great. If you don't see him out there on Friday, great. You'll see him week 1 in Atlanta up against the Falcons. Let's break down the play of the day real quick. It was C.J. Gardner-Johnson in coverage from in coverage with Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry coming from the slot. He ran from one side of the field, a crosser over to the other side of the field, which is a lot of crossers in this New Orleans Saints offense this year. You're going to see a lot happening over the middle. Clearly a place that the Saints want to attack along with the third level. And of course in the flats as they so often have. I mean, they often have done that anyway, right? So that's not really a new addition, but still a part of the tenets that will remain from the New Orleans Saints passing attack. And so Jarvis Landry comes across the field, and Jameis Winston puts what looked like a well-located pass. They were working away from us on the same plane as us, so it was a little hard to tell if maybe it was a little bit behind or a little bit in front. But what you could see is C.J. Gardner-Johnson showing off that same impressive closing speed that he showed you against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers not too long ago when he closed on, I believe it was Scotty Miller, to get in and make that interception on the opposite sideline, doing something very similar here, sprinting, being able to close the distance, and then just sticking one hand out and doing on the interception today what Jarvis Landry did in the end zone yesterday up against Vincent Gray. Plucked the ball right out of the air, and then took a very well-deserved victory lap with the rest of the defense just going nuts around him. Defensive unit that was off the field came running on the field. Defensive unit that was on the field went running down the field. It was a whole thing. The defense brought a ton of energy in today's practice, in a practice that felt a little bit more of like low energy than what you usually expect from a training camp practice. So this was a big moment where things kind of shifted and changed and also set the tone for what the rest of practice would look like. And that's what we're going to get to next, because the New Orleans Saints defense came back out on top when it came to Monday's practice, reasserting themselves as the dominant unit that they are. We'll break it down and tell you how they did it as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, our live episode. Make sure you're getting all your questions in the chat as well. While you're getting those questions in, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Athletic Greens. Their AG1 powder is one of my absolute favorite things that I have ever done for my own health, just in terms of being able to have something that I just... Look, you take a scoop of AG1 powder, you put it in 8 ounces of water, you shake it up, ice cold water, you shake it up, drink it first thing in the morning, and then all of a sudden the rest of your day is just better. You get all of those vitamins and minerals that you're looking for, over 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day off right. And this ends up improving so much for you, everything from recovery to focus to digestion. Everybody's got a lot of concerns now around gut health. Gut health is such a big focus for a lot of people when it comes to health. This stuff helps with that in terms of helping you digest your food all throughout the day. Make sure that you're doing it in the way that's most efficient and best for your body. So go and check them out, because right now is the time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with the convenience of daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of their immune-supporting vitamin D supplement, and you also get 5 free travel packs of their AG1 powder with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership of your health and give yourself the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, another live episode for you here on the show. Get those Your Team Every Days in the chat. I see you, Chris Avery. I appreciate y'all very much for being here, Nola Gang 09. And for those of you that are listening or watching later as well, you can always hit me up on Twitter as well as in the comment section below with your questions. And of course, a nice Your Team Every Day. Appreciate you as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Now, I want to dive into the defense today as we continue on with today's episode. The fact of the matter is that the New Orleans Saints defense absolutely dominated day 18, Monday, of practices. It was a big time showing. The defense did not allow the New Orleans Saints, whether it be 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, whether it be team, whether it be red zone team, whether it be 2-minute team, doesn't matter, did not allow the New Orleans Saints into the end zone, with the one exception of an Andy Dalton scramble on a play action rollout where there were no options to the scramble side of the field or the rollout side of the field. And it was in red zone drills. He's about 4 or 5 yards away. He just ran into the end zone and he spikes the ball and he starts shouting, "Touchdown, baby!" He was so excited about all of it. It was super funny. It was a really nice moment. All right, it was a lot of fun, but it was all good stuff. But outside of that, that was the only time that the New Orleans Saints offense hit the end zone, found the end zone, found pay dirt, however it is that you want to say it. Outside of that, the New Orleans Saints defense absolutely dominated the day. You saw pass breakups from Bradley Roby, from Paulson Adebo, Vincent Gray, from Quentin Meeks. Quentin Meeks had 2 back-to-back fade routes thrown at him in the back of the end zone during red zone drills, and he knocked both of them away. I ended up writing the exact same note for both of those plays because it was the exact same thing. It was an Ian Book pass on what was effectively 3rd and goal from like the 3 or 4 yard line. He ends up pushing to the back of the end zone to Dejon Dixon, 43 pass breakup, 43 pass breakup. He got to both of them. So, I mean, you saw those guys there. You saw a couple of other PBUs from Paulson Adebo, who just continues to add to that long ledger of pass breakups. Demario Davis almost came up with an interception in 7-on-7s to start off. That would have been his 2nd day in a row with an interception in 7-on-7s. You also saw Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis is somebody that, like, last week in Green Bay, I asked Dennis Allen, what have you seen from Caden Ellis so far? Or really what I asked is, is the idea of getting veteran depth important to you? Because we're seeing you bring in guys like Kiko Alonso and Eric Wilson earlier this offseason, John Bostic most recently. And he talked about how Demario Davis is, proven. They really like what they've seen from Pete Werner, who will have injury and attendance updates here in just a moment to wrap up the show. But we did see Pete Werner out there doing side work today, so good news there as he continues to progress. And then he mentioned Caden Ellis as the only other named linebacker in that group, saying that Caden Ellis is another one that he feels like has made strides, not only just what he's able to do as a pass rusher and as a strong side linebacker in the run game, but also improving in terms of what he does in coverage. And I asked him, like, is that like the big thing, the place that you've seen him really take, make those strides and take those steps forward? And he mentioned off ball, but also already says that the thing that you already know that he does well is that he has, according to Dennis Allen, the strongest hands on the team when it comes to shedding blockers. It's one of the reasons why he's so efficient as a pass rusher. Ever since that, I feel like every single day, like Caden must have heard that somewhere, because every single day I've seen Caden Ellis come flying off the edge and get into the backfield. We've seen him be disruptive in preseason games. We've seen him be incredibly disruptive over the course of practice and over the course of camp so far. So when you look at where Caden Ellis is sort of carving out his role, he's carving out a role that might force you to maybe deploy 3 linebackers a little bit more than you've seen from the New Orleans Saints in the past. So And I wouldn't be disappointed by that, because I think that Caden has shown you that he can have that impact that you want to have on the field, on a first down, on a 2nd and long, on a 3rd and short, whatever. So, I mean, I look at this defense right now, and it was just another one of those big days where you just saw them come up with all of these stops and make all of these big plays, everything like that. So the defense, again, getting back up on its feet and having a fantastic day, and really brought all the energy. I mean, a lot of trash talk. There was a lot of moments to where one of my favorite moments was in red zone drills, Jameis Winston scrambled outside, didn't have anywhere to go with the ball, just kind of ran out of bounds. And somebody on the defensive side just kind of yelled, welcome back, which was just outstanding. So yeah, I mean, like the defense has all of its swagger. They're ready for the season to begin. It's very, very clear. Beyond the defense standing out, I do want to go back to Kirk Merritt for a moment. Kirk Merritt started taking some snaps at running back in the open practice in the Superdome Sunday. Monday, he spent his entire day with the running backs. He was in the position drills. He was in the kind of running back huddles. And when other running backs were on the field, he was off the field. Instead of waiting with the wide receivers like he usually would, he was waiting with the undeployed running backs instead. So he spent his entire day with the running backs. He told us, he came out and spoke with us after practice, and he said that, he was going to film study for the first time later today with the running back. So they're giving him some real opportunities to be out there. And one of the quotes that I took away from Dennis Allen's press conference was, the more things that you can do, the more valuable you become. And that's kind of where Kirk Merritt is. And I got to tell you, there's a feeling that the Saints are just trying to find a way to keep him on the roster. And it helps that, look, Dwayne Washington hasn't been able to participate in practice for the past few. He's been out since basically Wednesday of last week. They just released Devine Ezigbo. You're not going to overwork Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, so you've basically got Tony Jones Jr. and Abram Smith to kind of split up the snaps. So now you've got Kirk Merritt involved in that as well. So Kirk Merritt, I saw him line up 5 times. I saw him take 4 snaps from the backfield, 1 snap from all the way out wide. So they're still utilizing him in a really interesting way. So we'll see how they continue to do that. And if that ends up solidifying him a roster spot potentially and keeping him on the team, kind of like what we've seen the New Orleans Saints do in the past with a guy like Ty Montgomery, who they don't have this season for the first time in a couple years. But maybe they don't need him because they've got Kirk Merritt, who can kind of do all of those things. He can be a receiver for you. He can operate out of the slot. He can operate out of the backfield, and he can be a dangerous return man for you. You saw the big 59-yard return that he had in the preseason against the Green Bay Packers last Friday. A lot of argument to keep Kirk Merritt on that roster. Coming up next, we'll get to attendance and participation. Some key returns like Jameis Winston are met with some key absences like Michael Thomas and even Marshon Lattimore. We'll update all of that for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints. So go ahead and get your questions in the chat. And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. So as you gear up for the fall, you know that you need the right people on your team in order to make sure that your small business is firing on all cylinders. And LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it all easier for you in case you want to talk, find the people that you want to talk to, bring them in, do all of it for free and much faster. Now, of course, you've got the opportunity here to create a job with LinkedIn Jobs so that you can reach their network and beyond. And that network, of course, includes over 810 million people, which is just absolutely insane. Simple tools, screening questions. You can make it all easy so that you can focus on candidates that have the right skills and experience. That way you can quickly prioritize those that you want to interview and eventually hire. It's why small businesses are rate LinkedIn as the #1 site when it comes to delivering quality hires versus leading candidates. Don't want a bunch of leading candidates, but not enough quality hires. You get both with LinkedIn Jobs. And LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post a job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with all that you need to know when it comes to practice day 18 for the New Orleans Saints. Here is the attendance and participation report for you. We already discussed the biggest story, which is that Jameis Winston was back out on the field today, but there were some key missing names. 14 different players missing today's practice, although 2 of them were doing side work, doing work off to the side with trainers. So we'll do like we did yesterday. Let's go offense first and then defense, just to make sure that this isn't so overwhelming. You had a pair of tight ends in Taysom Hill and Adam Troutman, a pair of wide receivers in Michael Thomas and Kevin White, a running back in Dwayne Washington, and a trio of offensive linemen in Cesar Ruiz, Landon Young, and James Hurst, who are all out today, not seen at all. Now, we have also seen that there are times where some of these guys are just getting rest days and things like that, but Dennis Allen was very clear. Did not hide any information, basically saying that, like, look, if they've missed over the course of the last little bit, no one to my knowledge has been getting any rest days or anything like that. They're all dealing with something medical. Now, it was interesting to hear him say that they were dealing with medicals versus that they were dealing with injury. So some of this could be maintenance stuff that, maybe Matt Ray has a certain plan in terms of the way that he's utilizing rest days, and not necessarily rest days, but, doing a work day, but it's a work day in terms of medicals, things like that. There might be like little things like that are details that the Saints know that we don't know. But one of the things that, Dennis Allen acknowledged after practice was that there are, at this point of training camp, little nicks and bruises you have to deal with, quote unquote. So he understands that for some of these guys, and he's trying to help us understand that for some of these guys, it's just that time of the year. It's that time of the preseason to where you're managing what you need to do in terms of getting ready for the regular season and how to keep your guys healthy in doing so. Over on the defensive side, you see a couple of corners that were out in Marshon Lattimore as well as Alontae Taylor. Alontae Taylor was the other player that was seen working off to the side along with Pete Werner. Pete Werner was one of the two linebackers out. You can add Chase Hansen to that list as well. Then you have defensive back PJ Williams was not present, and you had defensive end Taco Charlton not present. Taco Charlton, again, was not present in yesterday's practice or yesterday evening's practice either at the Superdome, but I did see him on the sideline on the opposite side. He just wasn't dressed out. PJ Williams was out there yesterday, not out there today, so don't know if something happened there, but it's a long list of players. It is good news, though, to see Jameis Winston back, and it's also good news to see both Pete Werner and Alontae Taylor both working with trainers, doing some side work off to the side. So as long as that seems to progress forward, that's what becomes most important. Now, I will say that Marshon Lattimore, we mentioned yesterday, and shout out to Brian Abel who texted it to me about Marshon Lattimore going off the field at one point and then sitting on the sideline. It is worth saying that Marshon Lattimore never left the field, never went into the tunnel or anything like that. He was out there until the end of practice or anything. So that generally indicates that it's not a huge issue. The hamstring injury for Michael Thomas, kind of go either way on it, right? We need to know the severity of it. We don't have any update on what the severity of it is, although Brooke Kirchhoff at WWL TV did ask pretty explicitly, do we have any update on the severity of the injury? It doesn't seem like it's much of a concern for Dennis Allen. And Dennis Allen's mostly been, pretty transparent about most things in terms of whether or not they're big issues and whether or not they're little issues. So if he's not telling us that it's a big issue, it could be a no news is good news type of a situation. The other thing to note is that Kevin White and his injury is reportedly minor. New Orleans Football, of course, Nick Underhill tweeting out that per his sources, the Kevin White injury doesn't seem to be a serious thing. So it could just be that this is the time to where the New Orleans Saints are like, hey, you're nicked up. Let's be very, very cautious about everything from here on out and moving forward because they want to make sure that they have the best talent on the field when it comes to week 1. Okay. I don't want to get into more doom and gloom about injuries because, again, a lot of this is just wait and see where it goes. But I do want to get to today's Lan Yatch. And today's Lan Yatch, I think, is going to be fun. Defensive end Peyton Turner is flashing at exactly the right time. The reason why I mention this is because right now Taco Charlton is injured and he's not on the field. And I'll tell you, Taco Charlton has had some really nice plays over the course of camp. Marcus Davenport is still working his way back. He's getting a little bit more involved in team drills, but he's not necessarily flashing. He's still kind of working his way back and getting things going for himself as he, continues to recover and all that. So that means that right now a lot of eyes are on that edge rusher position to see who else is able to stand out with basically 2 guys being unavailable. And right now your group includes Cam Jordan, it includes Tanoh Kpassagnon, it includes Carl Granderson, Peyton Turner, and then Nico Lalos. Carl Granderson has performed extremely well so far over the course of camp. You know who Cam Jordan is. You know who Tanoh Kpassagnon is, and Tanoh does a lot of inside-out work anyway. Peyton Turner continues to flash. He had what would have been at least 1 sack today. He also had a couple of plays in terms of what he was able to do in the run game. Some folks have been very critical about the fact that Peyton Turner didn't get any sacks in the preseason game against the Green Bay Packers, as if that's the only way that you're good as an edge defender, and that's just simply not true. What Peyton Turner did all throughout the game in terms of setting the edge, being impactful in the run game, all of that, and still getting pressures, that's still worth acknowledging in terms of a positive for Peyton Turner. So I do think that Peyton Turner has done a very good job over the course of this offseason flashing, but he's also now doing a very good job showing you that he can do it anytime that he's on the field. And so this is where consistency becomes the big question. That's a big thing that he's been trying to prove over the course of this offseason so far. And some of that only comes down to what you have the opportunity to do. Do you get the opportunity to show that you're consistent, or are you simply just in a situation where you're being rotated so much that you don't really get to show consistency? Right now, he's getting to show consistency, and he's done a good job for it. Okay. Coming up later on today, we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that we're seeing from Kirk Merritt, which I think is such an interesting story, the way the New Orleans Saints are kind of moving him around. We'll dive deeper into that, and then we'll also dive deeper into what the New Orleans Saints should be doing over the course of this week with guys like Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, so on and so forth. These guys that are managing injury, but could also see some game action come Friday against the Chargers. We'll see how it all works out, but we'll break all that down and get to your questions as well. So don't forget to drop your questions in the chat as we wrap up the episode, and I'll get to those in the third segment of our pre-recorded episode tonight. That'll probably drop right around like 8 p.m. or so on YouTube, as well as your favorite podcast apps. While you're waiting for that, make sure you go and check out Locked On Fantasy. There it is, Locked On Fantasy Football, Locked On Dynasty Football. Get all of the news and information you need around your New Orleans Saints. That's here at the Locked On Saints podcast, but around your fantasy football options, including top 10 lists all the way to get you ready for draft week. Top 10 quarterbacks is today, top 10 running backs tomorrow, wide receivers, tight ends, and defense to get you through the rest of the week. So make sure you're staying up to date with all of that through Locked On Fantasy Football, Locked On Dynasty Football as well. I appreciate y'all, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day, and for making me a part of your day, a part of your routine, saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi, and for everything else you need around these episodes on your New Orleans Saints, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.